Hi! After 8 months of no speed paints, I'm back with a speed paint. I stopped recording them because the method I was using to record them took up way too much space in my laptop, and I don't actually have a tower PC. So I found a better way to record them, and I'm back. This is the first video in a series I want to do in which I redraw all of my characters' reference images for art fight. If you've seen my art file profile, or even if you've attacked me other years, you'll notice that all of my reference images are just a colored sketch of the character, generally at a 3/4 or front angle, and nothing else. And so this year I wanted to provide something a little more spicy, a little more detailed, and I'm doing turnarounds of each character in the same style that I offer commissions in, with the 3 views and maybe some props and the swatches and the information. The first one I wanted to start with, I figured I might as well start with something big, with something heavy, so I'm doing Narindra. This is my D&D character that I played for about a little over 2 years, from late 2021 to 2024. That's a lot of time, so they have a lot of outfits because they got up to a lot of shenanigans, and boy was this one long. I figured then since it would be a long speed paint, it might just be boring to have it silent as I usually do, or even problematic with copyrights to have music on there. So I just figured I would record myself talking about them a while, for no reason. I like info dumping, I just am shy about it, but I really like info dumping. Their first design is this one that I'm drawing right now. It's a purple coat, yellow trim, and fairly simple. One of the things I wanted to do with this one is that they are dressed for the cold, but only kind of. They come from the south of the fictional continent that we exist in for homebrew D&D, and it's warm there. And they're coming all the way up to the north of the continent, and the country that we are doing the campaign in, it's called Turo, it's really cool. Ask my DM about it. Actually, don't, he doesn't have social media. Is a country that's known for being really cold. They actually call it the land of curse and cold, and that takes me to the second part of this whole fuckery. Curses! Because you might have noticed in the sketch, if the sketch is that far along, I record sketch and voiceover separately, that Narin has a cursed hand, or a cursed arm, depending on which one of the designs we're on. Their whole character premise is that they are a magical item archivist, collector, and also librarian. It's like a combo thing. Their family runs a library, which is also an archive of magical items. None of them are wizards, none of them are casters. They just collect the things because they are nerds. They got a item that was cursed, and they didn't know it, so they touched it with their dominant hand, and now their dominant hand is not really a hand, it's more like a clawed appendage thing. Yay! So that's the skinny on the character. They are a librarian with a curse, and they're here to get it fixed because this is the land where this curse has presumably originated from. You might be wondering, Inky, what's that got to do with them being a sorcerer? We get there when we get there. We get there when we get there. Because as well as the curse, they've all of a sudden acquired sorcery. You might think that the sorcery came with the curse. That's what they thought too, and they were wrong, and so would you. Their sorcery is also highly volatile because it's brand new, and they haven't grown up a sorcerer, which means they haven't developed as a sorcerer, which means that their body isn't really ready for sorcery, so it doesn't really know how to put a lid on it. Every time they feel strongly about something, the sorcery just kind of flares up and does its own thing. So they've got this whole thing where they are upset because they are cursed, but being upset makes their magic unstable, so they're just unstable most of the time. That's more or less the conceit, and this is the first design. You know, they look a little rough, their sleeve is a little torn from having to fit in the big cursed hand, their glasses are cracked because they keep having accidents because of the lack of dexterity that the cursed hand brings along. And color-wise, I really want to talk about this part because it's my favorite part. I've chosen purple as the sort of color that represents them, and so I'm going to analyze the evolution of sort of their colors as the designs go on. Purple represents them. And they have these yellow highlights because yellow is purple's complementary color, so it's opposite. And, you know, they are sort of at conflict with themselves. Their life has been uprooted by both the curse and magic. And this magic that they have, it's them, but it's also not them. So they're kind of at conflict with themselves, and I wanted to have the complementary color scheme to really reflect that. Yellow is going to make more of a comeback in later designs where their magic becomes more prevalent too, so it was kind of a neat character thing. This design corresponds to the second city that the party visits. And the whole thing that they're doing is that Raz is Narin's party mate. This is Raz, by the way. Here's a picture of Raz. All hail Raz Risk because they are the best character in the entire campaign. I do not take no for an answer. Raz is looking for their dad. Their dad got lost at sea, and they have come to the kingdom of Sorrel because the water currents would have realistically led their dad here. Narin's looking for a solution to their curse, Raz is looking for their dad, and they're both outlanders, so they've banded together to find a solution to their problems, because it just so happens that both of their problems can be solved roughly the same way. So then what happens in the campaign is that this dude is going around asking every major house of nobles in Sorrel, there's 4 of them, to give them a letter of recommendation so that they can meet with the prince, who is essentially the king because Sorrel doesn't actually have a king, they just have a prince and a princess. Because Raz is looking for their dad, looking in every city makes sense, and if by the end they haven't found their dad, then the prince could help because the crown has a lot of resources. And Narin is hoping to score an audience with the prince so that they can get help with their curse. Now, I can imagine D&D players thinking, wait, isn't remove curse like a 3rd level spell? You would be correct! Let me introduce you to the concept of soulbound curses! Soulbound curses are a homebrew element from our setting, and the way it works is as follows. A normal curse is sort of like a veneer or a thing put over the soul. They can thusly be removed from the soul by a sufficiently powerful caster who can cast Remove Curse. Soulbound curses are much more hard to remove because they are very aggressive and quite parasitic. They work by intertwining or attaching themselves to the soul, which means that if you remove them, you take a chunk of the soul with them, thereby killing the host. So Narin's shit out of luck, and they have to go on this whole quest instead. That's why we have a campaign. So I don't think I can summarize the entire campaign here over the speed paint, nor do I think I should. I'm just going to give greatest hits relating to each design. Because the whole thing was so dense, and it had so many plot threads and lore that I had a whole detective-style red string corkboard where I was trying to figure out what the DM was putting down before it was revealed. Here's a picture of that. I'm not lying. Oh, and also here's their second design. This one features a greatcoat, a Soradine greatcoat. You can see it's got like fur lining too, so they're like more prepared for the weather. They're kind of settling into the country. It's Soradine tradition that you get a really nice greatcoat that'll last you your entire life. Because the country's really cold, you're gonna need one. You might as well invest in a good one. So Narin gets a good one. They've also got new glasses. They're brass glasses. They're in a very brass-heavy city that's sort of industrialized. It runs off of a ley line that sprouts from a dead goddess's corpse. That's one of the major plot points of the country. You also might have noticed that they took a scar to the face. That's from a machete. They got macheted on their face. They're really vain, so they're not happy about it, which is why posterior designs have it covered up with makeup. I will talk more about that whole thing when I get to the formal wear designs, which I think I'm going to put last in this video. Now, on to the third design. This one's major feature is that Narindra's cursed hand becomes Narindra's cursed arm instead, because while out and about adventuring, they stumble upon a vat of goo. Curse goo. There's no other way to describe it. Turns out that the terminal stage of the curse that they currently harbor is melting pretty much all of you into goo curse substance with only your deformed skeleton remaining. Exposure to this cursed goo substance obviously makes the curse worse, so Narin's cursed hand becomes bulkier and it goes all the way up their arm now. They are quite distressed about it, I'm sure you can imagine. You might be thinking they got a new coat because the old one ripped or tore because they were an adventurer. No. They got a new coat because they accidentally left the old coat with an NPC and realized way too late, and they thought it would be embarrassing to go back and ask for it. So they just got a new one. They like the NPC. They have a crush on her. So they're being kind of embarrassing about it because they have a crush on her. And the curse makes them self-conscious, and the magic makes them self-conscious, so they're just, like, getting really inside their own head about it. That's also why they have a locket. A bit later in the whole thing, they actually confess properly and they write letters to each other. So there's a little piece of one of those and they keep it and they put it in the locket so they can have it with them. Narindra's a person of dichotomy. They're really cute, but they're also horrible. It's more or less at this point that they get really into tracking the actual lore in universe. See, my corkboard wound up being practical. Because Narindra finds out that their curse is probably related to this historical figure called the White Witch, and they get really obsessed with tracking what's up with the White Witch because they feel like it might lead them to answers about their curse, and possibly a solution if the royalty thing falls through. Narindra has plans for their plans. None of them are good plans, but they have plans for the plans. They've got a lot of contingencies. They're all terrible. We will get into the lore very loosely because, again, it's so big. I can't summarize all of it in a reasonable time frame while also discussing the character design. So we're going to discuss the character design. Besides the aforementioned new coat and locket, this sheet has wand holsters. Raz is a bit of a craftsman, and they make them for Naren out of white dragon tissue that they get from killing a white dragon. That's also a thing they do. And it sort of makes them a little more proficient. You know, they're getting more used to the magic thing, so they've got stuff in their design to show it. And the coat, you might have noticed, is blue but not purple, even though purple is the Naren color. Naren might be having a bit of a crisis and might be trying to branch out a bit, you know, prove themselves a bit, you know, try to not freak out, but really freak out and have a crisis of identity. So I strayed away from their main color. This design is a really fascinating one to me because it's the final design. It's not the last one in the video, but it's the final design. Naren makes, again, the switch to a color that isn't purple still, and it's white and red because those are the colors of the prince. The prince is kind of a stickler for etiquette and protocol, and his official colors are white and red, and so Naren gets a white on red outfit to go have the audience with him. And might or might not agree to a couple things that Raz isn't entirely happy with, because Naren's a bit of a bitch and it's convenient to them. At this point, stuff's going down bad style. The crown is clashing with another one of the factions, and the aforementioned cult that I mentioned ages ago, yeah, those guys are bad. Their god has plans, the other factions have plans. Now, to borrow from Jenny Nicholson, remember when I told you about the dead goddess corpse? I put a pin in that, but I didn't tell you about the pin. Now we're taking the pin off. Everybody is fighting over this goddess corpse for some reason or other. Naren kind of wants a piece of the dead goddess pie because they realize that if they have enough power, then they can change reality for themselves and end their curse. But also, another faction wants it for another reason, also to change reality. The crown wants it to keep the economy and the lay afloat. The cult wants it because that dead goddess is the sister of their god. It's a mess. The party's fighting, the factions are fighting, everybody's fighting. Also, Naren's great, many greats uncle is here, and he's evil. I'm not even kidding. He's here, he's a lich, and he has golden-themed magic. You might be thinking this has something to do with the golden strands I'm putting on Naren's hair in this design, and it kind of does. The thing is, those are a result of the sorcery. Naren has slightly metallic parts of them now, like the nails and the hair, because, you know, conductor. It's a conductor material. They're an electrical sorcerer. You might also be noticing that they don't have a cursed arm in this design, and that is because they make a Faustian bargain with their great evil grand uncle, who is a lich and super spiteful. He's evil as fuck, but he's also kind of a smooth talker, so he smooth talks Naren into this bullshit. He also has golden hair, so, you know, that's kind of a point of like, oh, we're not so different, I can show you the way. He's not even a sorcerer, he's a wizard, he's a lich. Basically, before I get to rambly, this outfit's white on red, it's a lot cleaner, it's a lot simpler, it's a lot sleeker. I tried to make it have sharper angles with the shoulder pads and the really pointed coat ends. It's sort of Naren's, not quite villain era, but definitely like the worst moral era, and I kind of wanted to show. It's got a lot more of the gold coming through that they've silently had in their eyes. You've seen that I've added like a little eye icon in the corner. That's because their eyes progressively get yellower and goldier as the campaign goes on, and this is kind of where they peak. There's a lot of gold going on here. Also interesting that their great-grand-uncle really leans into those yellows, which are like the complementary of Naren's purple. I really like that touch on my DM's part. Funnily enough, though, Narn and their great-grand-uncle, who do ally at some point, they meet at red. That's the color they've got in common here. Narn takes it for crown reasons, their granduncle takes it for different reasons. The element in which he stores his soul as a lich is this big red item. It's called the Matrix. You might have seen it in a drawing I did years ago. If you've been following me for some time for some reason, it's this one. I don't have time to explain the Matrix, but it is red, and it is one of the central elements to this man's nefarious plan. So it's funny that they meet at that color language-wise. I would say this design is the design I have the least to say about. It's just a funny little design I did. Narn had a bit of a crisis, changed their hair again. This one comes before the white on red outfit, but I did the white on red outfit first because it's more iconic. It's a magic coat. They're trying to sort of embrace their magic. They're kind of failing, but they're kind of trying to really be like, okay, what if I lean into it? So they get a magic coat. It's purple because they're trying to be themselves. It's also still got, like, the golden accents. Again, conflict with the self. I don't have that much to say about this one. I just think it looks cool. Now these are the formal wear designs because I love dressing up my characters. I'm pretty sure at this point the DM includes formal wear events into the campaigns because he knows I adore formal wear events and going like shopping session and dressing up my characters like they're little dolls. So I get not one but 2 formal wear events in the campaign. The first one, which is the one you're seeing right now, is from really early into the campaign where the first nobleman the party meets asks them to deliver a wedding present for his friend, since he is in the city that the party intends to visit anyway. We do deliver that, and the father of the bride is like, I need you to crash my daughter's wedding. I remember this very distinctly because my DM did Cave Johnson's voice for this NPC, and with, like, his faux American accent, he goes, I need you to crash my daughter's wedding. And I just remember bursting laughing out loud. He cut off the music at the perfect time too. It's probably one of the most memorable scenes in the campaign, and I just can't get enough of it. Either way, we agree to meet up with the daughter, so the bride-to-be, and she explains to us that this guy started courting her, and at first it was, like, fine, but now she's getting cold feet, and he's kind of cold, and he's not great. But she doesn't want to cause, like, a noble scandal that's going to wind up all over the tabloids by just being like, I don't want to marry this guy. So she would rather have an excuse not to marry this guy. So we sleuth around, we meet an urchin, we befriend the urchin, we find evidence that this guy is embezzling funds from a joint project the 2 families have. And then we show up at the party, that's why we have formal wear outfits, and Raz delivers a stunning speech, just exposing this guy as a piece of crap, and then throws a lobster from the banquet at him. And he gets so mad, but he can't actually do anything about it, because we just exposed him for being basically a massive piece of crap that's just marrying someone to better hide his embezzlement of funds. TLDR, he becomes a recurring villain NPC that's just kind of a nuisance because he's just painfully incompetent and nobody likes him because he's an asshole. Anyway, about the design, it's all white to be kind of sleek, kind of elegant. Narin's got the purple going on. They got a cufflink that's got the emblem of one of the noble houses. That's the noble house that they first befriend. And they've got sort of the cute little hairdo. They're wearing makeup. It's really cute. And they're absolutely overcompensating for all of their insecurities. They're covering up their curse. They're dressed in white, which is very antithetical to the black color of the curse. They're really, really, really overcompensating it, and I think that the design sells it fairly well. By this point, their nails are already golden, and they hate it because they really don't like the reminder that they are now magic and unstable about it. So they've covered them up with black polish to try to give themselves a sense of normalcy. It's all just overcompensating. And then this is the final one. This is a separate occasion that they get invited to a formal wear event. This one is black tie. And for this one, they're just wearing a dress just cause they've got really dark colors to try to fit in with the black tie thing. They are wearing a glove because I don't know if you noticed, but at some point they lost their right arm. And they're also self-conscious about it because their sense of self keeps crumbling and people and things keep making changes to their body. Funnily enough, they go on to be friends with the NPC that took their arm off, but that is a story for another day. Here's a picture of them. Their name is River. I love them. But River is really a story for another day. For now, they've got a glove over the prosthetic, they've got a cape over the cursed arm. They really, really, really don't want to have to acknowledge that things are changing, and so are they. This is also a design that doesn't actually have that much to it. It's just a black tie event with one of the noble houses. I just wanted to feature it because now I think Naren looks cool. Here's all of the references together. Thank you very much for listening to me talk about my original character from a D&D campaign for upwards of 15 minutes. I hope you found it entertaining. I've just kind of been rambling, honestly, because that's what I tend to do when I'm alone. I tend to ramble about my characters. I figured I would just record it instead and see what happens. I needed a voiceover for the speedpaint anyway. If you want a reference sheet like the one I just made, you can commission one on my Ko-fi page. Here's a link to that in the description or something. Obligatory like and subscribe mention. I don't know, I'm not a YouTuber. If you found this fun, I will probably talk about more of my characters because I plan on making the reference sheets for all of them. This is the one I've done next. I don't know which one will go after her. I'm probably gonna make one talking about her. She is a one-shot character, so she doesn't have as much going on as Naren, so she might be less confusing. I don't know if I'll ever explain the full campaign, honestly. I will never say never. I don't currently plan on it. Who's to say? Thank you very much for your time. Whatever the case, see you around.